LFM Esports getting their first win of HGC 2018 and maybe calling out HeroesHearth just a little bit. Hey, we got the win. Can you do it over Spacestation? It's going to be another good series on our hands, J-How.
Yeah, this one has potential to be fireworks. The way that these teams play, the way that we know Spacestation Gaming likes to play, could be a clash of very interesting styles, good team fights potentially. You know that HeroesHearth, not afraid to shy away from it, and Spacestation definitely looking to bring it.
Yeah, they're looking to bring it, and I'm excited. I feel like, it's getting pretty late, so it's a good series to have for that time. Let's check in with the standings now. The LFM has a point on the board. Gale Force Esports unfortunately falling 1 and 2 after that, and tying up with LFM Esports. A really good win there for LFM. Remember for these standings too that these don't just go through to the Western Clash, but the top 4 teams will go to that, but they continue through Part 2. And so it not only sets you up really well for the Western Clash, but as you are trying to get into position for a good spot, either to guarantee a spot at the mid-season brawl or at least not have to play so much through the playoffs.
Yeah, the playoffs obviously have been particularly interesting the last 2 that we had, especially, we look over at Europe, a team coming from the Open Division, making their way all the way just like one series, a very close series, close to making it to BlizzCon. So, there's a lot to be made of coming from the bottom, and there's a lot to be made from having already been at the top. So it makes it a little bit easier when you're near the top, and the fact that, we've got 4 teams going to Clash. You want to be in that top 4, but you also would like to be a little bit higher up there for the playoffs down the road.
And you definitely don't want to be in the bottom 2 because that's where you have to face the Crucible. Now, both the teams in this upcoming match have a lot of personality, so let's check in with them and see what they think about this matchup.
I think Spacestation Gaming has a lot of motivation and hunger and that drive, and I get that feeling from them more than almost any other team right now from scrimming against them.
They had the potential, but as we saw last season, they were the team that did have that lost even death and seemed to crumble after that. So if they can keep on their highs and keep sort of staying strong, then they have a good chance, but it seems as though one little mistake could cost them the rest of the season's games from tradition of last season, so we'll see how that goes.
So Spacestation Gaming is like the young guns, the having fun guys, and I honestly think that play style is scary at times. You really don't know what they're going to play. They are the team that might bring the cheese, might bring the strategies that you're not ready for, and because of that, I am, I guess, intimidated by them. However, I believe that my team and our skill level is much stronger than theirs, and if we just get to play our own game and don't allow them to play theirs, that should be a pretty easy game for us.
I actually like HeroesHearth's roster a lot playing against them. Arthwan especially plays actually pretty good now after he's put in so much practice, which is surprising to me because I didn't have like a lot of expectation, but it seems like they meshed really well and they ended up playing pretty well with the trial by fire through Open. It seems to have made that team really solid.
So I think HeroesHearth is potentially underrated or overrated depending on whose opinion you look at. I feel like the community hype behind them is great and amazing, but they could potentially be a little overhyped. I hope that they can live up to the expectation though. I love the guys on that team. I play D&D every week with Crowan to have a great time, but realistically, I see them in a 5th or 6th spot for their first part and potentially a lot more improvement from there. There's a lot of potential on that roster, and I'm really excited to see how they go. So yeah, Crowan and I, we play in a D&D group every Sunday, and if we lose to HeroesHearth, not saying he's gonna die, but I can't be responsible for what happens.
What is he, the DM? Does he have that kind of control? Is he the support, the healer? He's not going to heal him? I'm confused how he continues. Is he going to turn bad?
It's just like, you are dead. You can't play with us anymore.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe
he's the DM and you can concoct some sort of...
I wish I knew more about it to give any more insight. It just didn't sound good.
You got sports, I got the fantasy role-playing. Let's get into the battleground for Game 1 of this series. I am really excited for this one. both of these teams have shown a lot of flexibility in draft already. HeroesHearth bans Braxis Holdout. That's been the norm for them. Space Station's going to ban Volskaya Foundry. That's been a favorite for HeroesHearth, and it's where some crazy strategies can come in. Tomb, the other favorite for HeroesHearth. Now, drafting-wise for them, Space Station so far probably the most diverse amount of heroes played by any of the team in the first week. Granted, some teams played more series than others, but they were very diverse. And then HeroesHearth, we've already seen them change up their drafting quite a bit from week 1 to week 2.
Yeah, I even saw a tweet from McIntyre last night. He said no Leo today. He didn't play Leoric at all after playing it all 4 games in their first series in week 1. I'm sure there's going to be some room for that. We're on Tomb of the Spider Queen to open this series up. I mean, it's not a bad pick, but obviously he's trying to prove a point. He actually looked incredible. He actually had one of the game-winning team fights on Sonya last night.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of potential, I think, as they do kind of open up that flexibility.
Yeah, I'm excited to see for that. HeroesHearth has also brought in such things as Asmodan. Arthalon has shown a lot of different picks. Crowan has started playing a lot different picks. He was only playing Greymane in the first week, but they only played the 1 series. So because of that, because both these teams are highly adaptive, highly reactive, changing things up a lot in draft, we could be in for a wild one, ladies and gentlemen. And I am stoked for it. We already had a Nova today in Europe. Let's see what else we can bring in, start giving some of these heroes their first play, their first game in HGC 2018.
You know, we were talking about this morning. As a matter of fact, the last time Nova was seen in North America was by Space Station Gaming.
It was. But Space Station, I don't think they will ever do that again. They won 2 games. They pull out the Nova Garrosh comp. They have this, like, this has been executing well in scrims. It worked out really well in scrims. And then they lose that, and they proceed to lose the next 2 games. I know we talked about Even in Death, or Crowan talked about Even in Death being the point where Space Station started to fall apart, but I would say that series did not help.
And I'm pretty sure their series beyond that took a similar turn, and it was just a downhill slope from there. Either way, we got our first Lucio ban here in the first phase. I guess not our first of the day anyways. Greymane on the other side, keeping it away from Crowan and HeroesHearth. You know, just to go back to that Asmodan pick, this is one of the easier maps if you ever wanted to stack it on. I don't think we're going to see it, but it is something. You come into focus here?
That could.
But I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, there's just so much potential. The Chromie, potentially coming out the Chromie as well as the Gul'dan that we've seen Crowan play.
The one thing I would like to request from these teams, as if this series does start to devolve into Game 4, Game 5, and we see the drafts start to echo that and trying to outdraft each other, yesterday HeroesHearth ran into an issue where it did seem like they may be flexed outside of their means. And I know you've talked about them being a very flexible team, but in going into the Tassadar, the Genji, the double backline with the Tassadar, it didn't seem to be as fluid and practiced. I would also say that Space Station has the possibility of also putting themselves into that position because they've had so many role changes to get to the roster and the role that they're at right now. So just making sure that it doesn't go too far. It's still practice thing.
And, you know, I think the other side of that is the fact that I think they did go too far. When they did go the triple backline, especially with the Tassadar in there, it seemed like it was very less refined. Here, we open up with a Hanzo Tassadar. I think this is a map that can allow you to keep that melee role, not go into that triple range.
Yes.
So I hope that if they do, this is kind of their full backline that we're going to see. Give you that complementary piece on the melee, whether it's the Leoric, whether it's the Sonya again, maybe even go down the road of Ragnaros here if you're McIntyre. So I would say that they're on the right path. I just hope they don't deviate too far from the norm here.
It's a very important game for HeroesHearth within this series. They've chosen to go to their only other favorite battleground choice that we've seen from them so far, between Volskaya and Tomb. And for HeroesHearth, they beat both Team Freedom and Tempo Storm on Tomb. So this is a place for them to get the starting win. So I would say it's way more important on HeroesHearth to make sure that they get the win here.
Karazim hover there. Obviously, Tomster known to play a fair bit of Karazim, also known to play a fair bit of Lucio. It seems like they're targeting his hero pool right now. I would say that Tomster, while he has shown quite a bit on those 2 heroes in his brief stint on the role, going back to the middle of last year into Phase 2, he's definitely more than capable, but we'll see how capable he is because 2 of his best are no longer available.
And he's played a lot more Lucio than anything else.
Yep.
4 games on Lucio, 2 on Malfurion, and then 1 each Alex Straza and Karazim. Maybe then that they're trying to force him into the Malfurion, or maybe we see Heroes Hearth take Malfurion in these next couple of picks, and then from there, try to see how far out the flexibility for Tomster goes. But in playing for most of the phase 2 as the support, I would say that he still probably has lots of comfort picks.
Still lots of comfort picks for sure. You know, the Malfurion point that you bring up, we've seen it with the Tracer, so you can apply those heals over time around your team and then heal somebody that does have that diving position. We approached that topic with Genji in the last game as well on Infernal Shrines. Boy, this might be going deep into a choke here. 3 support bans here.
Huh. I bet Heroes Hearth was not expecting that.
Well, the Uther ban works out really well. You can stun Genji, kind of follow up, get the Dragon Arrow on there, lock him down, maybe get the blow up. Also, Jaina with the burst damage. Uther does really well to mitigate that burst damage, giving the armor, giving the potential D-shield, and he has a form of cleanse that he can use. So there's a lot of utility against the likes of Jaina on that side.
I will fight
Sonya Rhaegar. Back to the Sonya. Loved that pick from McIntyre last time. That was versus Freedom yesterday. Yeah. Yeah, that was a big question. Is Heroes Hearth had a lot of growth and change from week to week, but how much can we see from them drafting-wise and growth from yesterday to today?
Well, I think the thing that we look at yesterday was it was McIntyre's flank onto the Jaina, who had not completed her baseline talent, did not have improved ice block. And the reason because of that was because a Johanna Jaina setup was on the other side. And when they ran that, they were able to rotate between mid and top and get phenomenal clear onto the minion waves. But they took a very cautioned approach. You have to do damage and then get more damage. So you have to apply the frost, then get more damage to go towards that baseline quest. And playing the Johanna Jaina style, they shied away from that. And that was one of the reasons why Sonya was able to get on that backside and be so impactful. So I caution Spacestation to take a similar approach when you look at the Jaina potential ice block that you'll need.
Malfurion should be able to help with that with a Twilight Dream. Silence to stop the Sonya from whirlwinding at least, maybe dissuading her from continuing that deep. Also, we saw Ring of Frost that game. That was a Ring of Frost game, and maybe just we see the Water Elemental in this case for Jaina as a way of just dropping that down, being able to still apply damage, keep the Water Elemental on the Sonya potentially so that she's slowed and that you're not quite as easy of a target. There's always a spear and the potential of hitting that spear, but maybe that'll be the difference.
Heroes Hearth known to love their combos. We saw a Diablo pick up in the later part of that in the last pick. You can get the big arrow out from Hanzo, get the follow-up APOC. We actually saw a Lightning Breath from Justine yesterday. I don't think we'll see that. So I think the synergy's there to get that. It's just those are too long cooldowns. I would have liked to have seen a Nubrak there. You have good interrupts when it comes to contesting the turn-in points here on Tomb of the Spider Queen, plus he has the Unstoppable to get in and out, and I feel like that would have done well, especially against the Jaina style, because he had that built-in spell armor. They opt with the Diablo, a little bit more offensive-oriented and a little bit more combo-centric, so that'll be something that we'll keep an eye on, is that combo there with Diablo.
Well, there's something else I want to talk about with this draft, but let's get into the game first. Heroes Hearth hoping for their first win, just like LFM got over Gale Force Esports. Let's go to Tomb of the Spider Queen for game 1.
LFM on the board. We're going to see if Heroes Hearth can put themselves a win up here, as it will be McIntyre on the Sonya, Ishbu on Diablo, Arthalon on Tassadar, BBJ on Rhaegar, and what we saw from Crowan on Hanzo before seems to be scary. We'll see how aggressive his positioning is this game.
And for Space Station Gaming, we've got Jason, new solo laner playing Malthael, Casanova will be playing Genji. Tomster, support player back on Malfurion. Up next, Equinox, he's going to be playing Johanna. And finally, Jay Shritta will be on Jaina. This is the exact same composition that Heroes Hearth ran yesterday versus Team Freedom, with the exception of Rhaegar instead of Uther. So that's probably another reason why we saw the Uther ban for Space Station. Having that Divine Shield was really crucial in McIntyre being able to go and dive as far, as deep as he did in those fights. And now they're relying on more of the Ancestral Healing. That's something that you might be able to work around, especially with a Malthael and the Touch of Death, the heal reduction.
Well, we are seeing redemption again. Casanova just barely getting out of there, and Jaina getting some return damage herself. But Crowan, we saw this before. He is so aggressively positioned in between these lanes. He's not afraid.
Neither is Casanova.
Yeah, Casanova's like, I'm not afraid either.
Goodness.
But the redemption, once he gets that stacked up, will be much better. And the synergy, obviously, with Tassadar is going to be really strong to get value out of that healing when you are shielded.
Casanova playing that well reminds me of another point you and I were talking about for Spacestation, and that's that with so many role swaps, along with the 2 roster changes, bringing in Tomster and Jay Shritta, who you see here, Spacestation's backline looked fantastic last weekend. Jay Shritta made a ton of plays. We talked about that Li Ming play that he had. He had his own Jaina build, which seems to have been switched up. And then Casanova, we didn't know how flexible he would be in his new role, and he proved to be more than competent on his role, and he's doing the same here. Some of the things that were difficult for them, you know, they ended up using the judgment that didn't quite work out for them. We know that that kind of flexibility Equinox loves to use. It's just trying to get Jason on his role to be more used to it, and Equinox too, but they're coming in strong for this first game.
Equinox is not afraid to use all of his abilities. He's actually out of mana already. Johanna, not normally known to be this early, but the aggression from Equinox definitely speaks to that when you look at his mana pool. You know, we're actually seeing a different build here from Shrite. We kind of got a little bit of Latin America flavor in his Jaina builds lately. It seems like he's going to change up, go towards a little bit more standard style when it comes to the meta.
We'll see if that changes out at all, or if he continues into having the cooldown reduction at level 7 and mana return with the Frostbolt. Now I'm really interested to see if at 7, what we've generally had is Cold Hand. Make sure that you don't have as easy kiting away from Malthael. He has more control with that slow from his Soul Rip, but in this instance, if he feels like he can cut down a crucial ancestral healing from BBJ, that might be a switch up to see Touch of Death there.
As aggressive as we've seen Crowan so far. He's now completed the redemption. Remember, that is lost on death, but his auto attacks with the Tassadar now become far scarier. His aggression that we saw on this battleground to just kind of hover between these lanes is definitely noted. Casanova going in, he's going to return some damage as well.
Heal reduction from Malthael makes me think maybe it won't be from Malthael, but we'll see. He has that at level 4. Oh, Genji, goodbye.
BBJ coming in with a little bit of bite, making sure that the next auto attack got the finish there.
HeroesHearth get a kill of their own, and they're continuing to do a good job of keeping aggression in this mid-bot rotation, so that they can keep the turn-ins going. Sonya going to do the same and turn it down the bottom. Ishba goes in, throws back Equinox, who is trying to run away. Gets the runaway, but it keeps all of the presence in favor of HeroesHearth on this turn-in point. They're just about to Web Weavers.
I can't take my eyes off Crowan on his positioning. Every time he's so far forward with redemption stacked up, he is just in spots that you won't see many other people be in, and he is just very comfortable on this hero, continuing to put out the pressure onto them with the auto attacks, and he's looking good so far.
7 there, Touch of Death is the choice for Jason, so a couple of different ways to try to make sure that BBJ doesn't get as much out of his Ancestral. 7 here for both teams. And both teams really close to a turn-in.
I snuck a peek at damage numbers. Crowan's at 23,000 damage, just less than 5 minutes in. It's impressive. Either way, red Web Weavers picked up here for Spacestation. They're going to get the push in, and you imagine they're going to turn their attention here middle. They have superior wave clear when it comes to Johanna, Jaina pushing forward, and that will allow them to flex their rotation to whichever lane that they see fit.
Looks like it's going to be in the top lane for the moment. Sending up Jaina, at least trying to clear that wave out so that the Web Weavers get as much done as possible. They're going to go back down to the mid, keeping Malthael and Genji, but Malthael is in danger in the bottom lane as there's a collapse from Diablo. Going down there, Diablo and Sonya didn't get the kill on Malthael, got him very low, had to use the tap, and that'll push back that bottom lane, but Spacestation can feel even more confident pushing forward in this mid because of that. Here comes the Diablo.
Oh, that iron skin saved him from being stunned into the wall, but it did not save him from death as Ishbu grabbed him, used his overpower, and tossed him back in. That's the name of the game for Equinox, is he will always be on that front line and a position that will always have a little bit of risk to it.
High risk, high reward. They can pull it off. They do lose Johanna, but Space Station make a swift rotation to the bottom to assist that final web weaver, and they're still getting a lot done. They're really taking advantage of the time that they have. They have that heal reduction on McIntyre now too, to make sure that he can't get as much of the whirlwind. But there you go. There's 1/4 that's about halfway down, and Space Station are just about to get to 10. So recovering even with that Johanna death.
That Malthael pickup versus an Ancestral is just so dominant that when Tormented Souls comes out and they don't have a Cocoon available, the Anubarak would have done really well there. They're going to have to hope the APOC, they can survive through that. Sonya with the self-sustain. And then the rest of the team, because if they get on Rhaegar and Hanzo, it's tough. They're going to be fighting for their lives, and hopefully they can return some damage. So,
yeah, Kala's Light's going to help with that from Tassadar. Just the shielding in general will help with that. Diablo also giving up Diabolical momentum to get the Soul Shield, just as another way of trying to make sure that he's got some ways of staying alive besides just fully reliant on the heals, which is good anyway, because it's likely he's not going to get the Ancestral unless it's absolutely necessary. Casanova goes down as the Dragon Arrow comes out. That is 1 kill for HeroesHearth, but Equinox stepping in with the Blessed Shield. Jason coming in too, Ring of Frost, Roots 2.
Roots 2, McIntyre now trapped in that force wall, but Ishbu coming over to lend a hand. Iron Skin's going to go up, but that's not going to be enough for Equinox, as 3 members have gone down on the side of Space Station. They just open that up by demolishing Casanova.
Yeah, it's a scrappy fight between these two teams. The first one post-10. Genji going down, but still wanting to go back in for the fight against HeroesHearth now gives HeroesHearth a lot of leverage, and not only getting the web weavers, they send Rhaegar down to start those giants so they can have a better push there, and they're looking to nullify all of the damage that Space Station got, all of the push that they got in the lanes by getting some done of their own. Seeing the Force Wall Diablo composition once again. This was HeroesHearth who ran that yesterday, right?
Yeah, you get the charge into the Force Wall, get that damage in post 13. Go in Devastating Charge, you get that percent-based damage in these tight quarters into the Spider Queen. Post 16, hopefully line that up. Had that slow continued, Ishbu might have found himself another kill. Good Roots, good Iron Skin.
Pushing in the mid and the bot, it looks like, for HeroesHearth. Just Sonya down in the bot. Gonna find a target, force out the Iron Skin. Casanova was winding up. They got the Ring of Frost too. Ancestral Healing connects, but it's still not enough to save Groen. And Casanova dancing over HeroesHearth to take out 2 more. And that's so many gems that nobody is gonna get to pick up for HeroesHearth.
If anybody wondered why is Rhaegar not in the meta, Genji is a big reason for that, because you don't have the right type of protection. Again, Malthael and Genji, no Anubarak, opting for the Diablo. Very offensive oriented, doesn't have the same defensive tools with the Cocoon. You're going to suffer to one of those. And the problem is once Rhaegar goes down, it's all downhill from there. And a lot of it is just to dive the back line, dive the Rhaegar, put him under pressure. The Ancestral was actually really well done there to keep Crone alive, but there's just not enough. And that's why solo Rhaegar is in such an awkward spot right now. Yeah,
and you're totally reliant on Diablo to try to make sure that you are getting the peels that you need. And it's been a lot more about Ishbu going in and setting up kills for the team. Unfortunately, another kill does not go their way as they lose their Sonya. And with the Tormented Souls going down, Diablo's under fire as Space Station pushed them back. They have forced... HeroesHearth have dropped so many gems because of these fights. Space Station doing a great job of zoning that away, taking out these high gem holding heroes, and they're down to 30 gems.
They're down to 30 gems. Crone trying to interrupt for the moment. It's all for naught eventually. Tomster's going to be 1 shy there. Casanova, he's got 1. That should be enough there. That's up to Space Station. Ideally, you want to take 2 forts. At this point in the game, you're 10 minutes in. You've got the lanes pushed out. Mid-fort seems like it should be easy to take down. Hanzo doesn't have the same type of clear. We're still waiting on Tassadar to finish. Actually, he did finish his quest, so the clear is going to be there. So he has the extra damage and the extra AoE. But getting the push in is where Space Station needs to try and get minimum 2 forts at this point. They can do that by just opening up one lane, whichever one they see Heroes Hearth respond to with one member in the rest, rotate to that weak lane, and try and 5-man push.
And with all these combos that Jay Shritta's been landing, he hasn't died yet. He's already done with improved Ice Block too, which is a big sigh of relief when you're playing that Jaina versus the Heroes Hearth composition. Heroes Hearth came online in a big way with this comp once they had 16 because McIntyre was a lot more survivable and was just completely in the back line, had that big push. But they also were behind Team Freedom up until that point when they started to get the fights. This time, Space Station is making sure that that is not the case. Actually, no, Heroes Hearth was ahead most of that game, if I remember correctly.
Gilly, if you recall in the Gale Force series, I had mentioned that if you do want to try and make a boss play, you need to focus mid and then focus top and then let the bottom lane be the last one to be responded to. That would be how you make a boss play. Space Station Gaming, it looked like they considered it for a moment, but what they're going to do is they're going to grab the night camp, get the bottom pressure, get the mid pressure, so siege camps, both camps being picked up. They recognize that Heroes Hearth doesn't have a ton in the way of turn-in. Johanna can go defend one of those, and if they can try and keep the lane control and then double up on turn-ins because having vision and lane control mid-bot, it gives a really big power play. This is a Space Station Gaming that we're known to see team fighting. This is actually a really good macro call by them. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and it's important to remember too that that would have been one opportunity for a fight for Heroes Hearth on fair ground because Space Station wasn't quite 16. So in that instance, they get this big push going in both of those lanes. They control the turn phase. They already have 38 gems of the necessary 60 for their next Weapweaver phase, and they can push along with that 16 advantage. It's not going to be long. Heroes Hearth isn't far along before they can make sure to fight and try to stop Space Station, but it does make sure that Space Station maintains control, maintains vision around these points.
One of the biggest things there, we actually saw Sonya on the minimap, was holding position, not showing on the minimap because of the potential threat of the boss. So you can see Sonya already rotating up on the minimap. They're going to sniff this out. So good recognition by Heroes Hearth, understanding that the boss is a threat. Not showing in that lane means that Space Station Gaming could not hard commit to something just yet because they didn't know where Sonya was. And by the time all that comes through, the rest of Heroes Hearth rotated up, sniffed it out, got 16. Excellent counterplay by Heroes Hearth.
Yeah. Our Hanzo combination we've seen have so many benefits, but you can't forget the vision benefit that Oracle and Sonic Arrow give. That far away from vision allowed Heroes Hearth to be just far enough back to see that Space Station, in fact, was not on the boss. They were setting a trap, and they got back just in time before that Blessed Shield came out. Now the Web Weavers have been achieved by Heroes Hearth. They haven't lost any keeps yet. They've been able to take out a fort. That mid fort is low. So as long as they work on pushing back these minion waves, they should be able to get something done with it.
Yeah, you know, they have Sonic Echo here from Tassadar. Should help them push the lanes a little bit better. Bottom lane, very far pushed out. Looking at the gem count, there's only about 30 on the side of Heroes Hearth. So it's up to them to try and get a kill here. Try and open this up a little bit, else they're going to have to find their way back in a team fight anyways. You might as well try and be a little bit aggressive here. We saw the force wall. We'll see if we have the charge available. Still on cooldown. But this is an opportunity for them to be aggressive because it's going to be a while before they get those gems to try and turn it over.
Oh, wow. Oh, the ice block was very nice from Jaina, but doesn't matter. McIntyre was there to catch him just as soon as he came back out. But the Dragon's Arrow and then the follow-up Apocalypse, excellent from Heroes Hearth, recognizing that Jay Shritta was just a little bit behind and retreating, and they could punish that. Also, the force walls have been forcing out the iron skins, so even if the charge doesn't end up working, at least they're making use of that. Here goes another force wall. Jason in danger, goes in at the inevitable end, keeping himself alive with the Tormented Souls for the moment. Tomster hits a money Twilight Dream, and they have the follow-up Dragon Blade 2, but Heroes Hearth lives through all of this with the double supporting.
I'm just so happy to see that Heroes Hearth took that opportunity and they ran with it. They got the kill that they needed. They had the combo that was mentioned in the draft, and that you get the Dragon Arrow, you get the APOC, perfect combination. They relied on it. They got it once there. They're going to have to do it again, but as it stands, that one kill opened it up, allowed for a second one, and now they're starting to stretch their lead and take control of this game.
Yep, they have nearly a 2-level lead, as well as the first keep down in the game. Aggressive rotation in, not allowing the minion wave to be cleared out as easily. No 20 for Heroes Hearth, but all of the lanes are pushed way up against the keeps of Space Station. And with that 20 on its way, if they can wait it out just a little bit longer, You're going to have a good setup for the next play with those Storm talents.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to get the Siege Giants, and again, that gives you that lane control. You have the catapults down there, so even if Space Station wants to make a play to try and be aggressive, it puts them on a timer, it puts them on a clock. Because the catapults and the Siege Giants at this late in the game will do damage. And so it's up to Space Station to clear that out. HeroesHearth will be able to play the 20-tier advantage and hold from there. Equinox has enough return, and that's a really good interrupt.
Yeah, Equinox, being the Johanna, can't be out trying to zone away. So you see Genji and Malthael trying to be that instead. At this point, getting a turn-in just for Equinox means in the rest of Space Station that they can hold until they get 20 of their own, but it's getting dangerously close, far too close for HeroesHearth. For Space Station to feel comfortable out here. The Blessed Shield doesn't connect. The last-ditch effort for the fight. 20 nearly here as the Force Wall goes down behind. HeroesHearth don't have that 20 yet. Now it's there. There goes the bolt in. The Apocalypse down. This looks troublesome for Space Station.
It's troublesome, but the Ring of Frost has landed. Ancestral keeping Crone alive. The Twilight Dream has silenced Diablo, but Genji goes down in the middle of that team fight. Diablo should have souls if he falls, but 3 members on the side of Space Station have fallen. Make that 4, and HeroesHearth, just like that. Space Station Gaming played with fire, Gilly, and stuck around a little bit too long.
They played with fire, and they got burned. 4 to 5. All 5 of Space Station now dead. HeroesHearth has Diablo coming back, but the rest are ready to head on to the core with the Giants there prepping that lane. Already doing a lot of damage to the shielding and bringing the core down. HeroesHearth will finish off the game and get the first win versus Space Station.
Little mini game there between Arthalon and McIntyre as he continues to put down Force Walls to mess with him. The game, of course, was over at that point, but HeroesHearth, they took the team fight when they needed to, got the pick, and everything that they did to regain control, that Space Station did to gain control, it seemed like they gave it up. You know, they had the lanes pushed out. They allowed that turn in. The minute they allowed that turn in, it was an opportunity. Again, because they didn't have enough gems, they were sitting on about 30 when they started that Web Weaver phase, was HeroesHearth. Because that turn-in was allowed, which shouldn't have been allowed when you have a Johanna on your team. When that was pushed in, that was the only opportunity they were going to have. It's take a team fight now while you have Web Weavers push, or take a team fight later after the Web Weavers push. It's much better to take it in the beginning. They look for their opportunity. The big Dragon Arrow out from Kroan, synergy from that team, set that up. They rolled with it from there.
Yeah, McIntyre's positioning was excellent because that ice block saved him from the Apocalypse, and he dropped it right away trying to get back through the gate, but McIntyre never let him back through, and that burst was just enough to kill that Jaina. And then that made things harder for the defense of the Web Weavers. They had the setup there with the Force Wall. I like that they switched up the targets too. They saw Johanna on one side, Malthael on the other. They set it up so that they did a ton of damage to Malthael right at the start of that. Tried to get in at Tormented Souls, just get the self-healing that he possibly could. Just wasn't quite enough to keep Jason alive. And that was the big turn because Space Station, for a lot of that game, the earlier game, had the control of the game. So now we're looking at HeroesHearth with a composition that they pretty much ran the exact same, just a change in support, but it's kind of along the same lines, right? He doesn't have the Divine Shield, but he still has this burst heal who can keep someone alive, give them a second health bar. It feels like HeroesHearth makes plans. They come in, they have this plan, they're going to stick with it, and that does seem like it gives them an opportunity to learn a lot from these series.
It does seem like they learn a lot, and it looks like they learned in the middle of that. The execution of the Dragon Arrow into the APOC was kind of their money, you know, and that was where they needed to pull it off. It only takes one time to really change it, and when you have the big wombo combos, expectedly you have 1 to 2 shots post level 10, and if it's a really long game, maybe a third time. So you have to hit it. You can't land one without the other. If you do, you really hope that everything's in your favor. And so that's a big part of running combos like that is as pretty as it looks. We're looking at really big cooldowns, and the opportunities that you have in the competitive scene are very slim. They use that, and it went to their advantage. And once they hit that, it was there's certain times in a game where you can look at one play and be like, that changed the entire dynamic. And to me, that was the big play. But I think that's more on the side of Space Station, because, again, giving up that turn-in so freely after they just pushed all the way to the keep wall. They pushed all the way. They got the siege camp. They got the night camp. They had control. They had vision. They had lane control. And then they gave it up. And it just opens the door. And when you pick Johanna on Tomb of the Spider Queen, you expect to have somebody monitoring that, making sure you can keep 4 people in one, Johanna in the other, quick rotation up. A little bit of a mistake.
Yeah, that did cost Space Station. And we'll see how they're feeling after that game.